You are flying at 25,000 feet over central Germany. Below you, the clouds break just long enough to reveal a patchwork of fields, rivers, and cities. Somewhere down there, unseen, steel is waiting for you. But according to everything you have been taught, it should not matter. You are too high, too fast, too well defended. For years, Allied planners believed in a rule that felt absolute. Tightly packed daylight bomber formations could fight their way through anything. Fighters could be deterred by interlocking gunfire. Anti-aircraft guns, flak, were considered inaccurate, wasteful, almost psychological weapons. Loud, scary, but statistically survivable. You accept that rule every time you climb into a B-17 or B-24. You hear it in the briefings. You see it in the charts. Flak bursts are random. They scatter. They look terrifying, but they do not aim. Then on a cold morning in 1943, the sky over Germany proves that rule is wrong. Bombers begin exploding without warning. Entire aircraft vanish in perfectly timed black bursts. Crews are killed instantly before they can even brace. There is no pattern you can evade, no fighter you can see, no mistake you can correct. And the men watching these losses, men like Colonel Hub Zemk, realize something chilling. This is not random. This is engineered. And in 1943, one system, refined by German science and protected by ruthless discipline, turns the daylight skies over Europe into a calibrated killing zone. You are Colonel Hubert Zemk in early 1943, 30 years old, already one of the sharpest tactical minds in the United States Army Air Forces. You are not a bomber pilot. You fly fighters. P-47 Thunderbolts, heavy, fast, brutal. You command the 56th Fighter Group, and your job is simple on paper: protect the bombers. But what you are seeing defies everything you know about air combat. In January and February of 1943, the 8th Air Force launches deep penetration daylight raids into Germany. Regensburg, Schweinfurt, Bremen. Targets critical to the German war economy: ball bearings, aircraft plants, oil facilities. The theory is precision bombing. Destroy the industrial heart, shorten the war, save lives. The reality is carnage. On the Schweinfurt-Regensburg mission alone, 60 bombers are lost out of 376. That is over 16% in a single day. And those are only the aircraft that never come home. Many more limp back shredded, crews dead or dying inside. You study the after-action reports. Fighter losses are expected, but flak losses are climbing at a rate that makes no sense. German anti-aircraft fire is not just heavy. It is precise. Batteries open fire at exactly the right altitude. Bursts detonate not behind the formations, but inside them. Aircraft flying straight and level, doing exactly what doctrine demands, are being destroyed with mechanical efficiency. You begin to understand the stakes. If the Allies cannot solve this, daylight bombing fails. And if daylight bombing fails, the war drags on for years. You are staring at a problem no single pilot can outfly, and the Germans know it. You need to understand what is killing your bombers, and what you discover is not a gun. It is a system. Across Germany, the Luftwaffe has built a layered air defense network unlike anything the world has ever seen. It starts with radar, Freya and Wurzburg sets, detecting bomber streams while they are still hundreds of kilometers away. Those radar tracks feed into centralized command bunkers. Plotters calculate altitude, speed, heading. They do not guess, they measure. Then the data is transmitted by landline, not radio, to flak divisions positioned in concentric belts around key targets. Each belt is assigned an altitude band. Each gun crew knows exactly when to fire. This is not barrage fire. This is predictive fire control. At the heart of it is the 88mm gun. High muzzle velocity, ceiling over 30,000 feet. Shells fuse not by time but by calculated altitude adjusted in real time. You are flying into a three-dimensional firing solution. When the bombers cross the initial line, the first belt opens fire. Not to kill, but to force formation rigidity. Crews tighten up. They hold altitude, they maintain heading. That is exactly what the Germans want. The second belt fires next. Bursts bracket the formation. Left, right, above, below. You feel the shockwaves rock your aircraft even miles away. Then comes the inner belt. This is the kill zone. Shells detonate inside the bomber boxes. Wings shear off. Cockpits implode. Oxygen systems rupture. Men are killed without ever hearing the explosion that takes them. You read survivor accounts. Pilots describe seeing a bomber ahead of them simply disappear. No fire, no debris at first, just absence. Navigators are found frozen at their tables. Gunners slumped at their posts, untouched by shrapnel but dead from pressure trauma. And there is nothing the bomber crews can do. They cannot dive. They cannot scatter. If they break formation, fighters will finish them. If they stay together, the flak will. This is the impossible equation. By mid-1943, German flak is responsible for more bomber losses than fighters on several missions. Over 10,000 heavy guns defend the Reich. Some targets are ringed by hundreds of barrels. You realize the horrifying truth. The Germans have turned the sky itself into a weapon. And every mile deeper the bombers fly, the math turns worse. You are watching the numbers pile up. Mission after mission, the losses repeat with mechanical cruelty. Not chaotic, not unlucky, predictable. And that terrifies you more than randomness ever could. You begin timing it. From the moment the bomber stream crosses the German border, the first radar contact is made in under 2 minutes. Within 5, flak divisions are alerted. By 10, firing tables are calculated. When the bombers reach the target area, the guns are already waiting. Barrels elevated, fuses set, crews calm. This is not men shooting at airplanes. This is industry engaging industry. On August 17, 1943, the second Schweinfurt raid drives the lesson home. 376 bombers launch. 60 are destroyed. Another 121 are damaged. Nearly 600 airmen are killed or captured in a single day. You read the words of a surviving navigator. The flak was so thick you could taxi on it. That is not exaggeration. Over Schweinfurt alone, German batteries fire more than 24,000 shells in one engagement. Each shell weighs 20 pounds. Each bursts with razor-edged steel traveling at supersonic speed. You imagine the geometry. A B-17 presents a target nearly 75 feet wide, flying straight, flying level, flying exactly where the firing solution predicts. You realize something else. German gunners are not trying to shoot down every bomber, they are trying to break the formation. One aircraft destroyed opens a gap. That gap exposes the next aircraft. Flak funnels bombers into narrower corridors, increasing density, increasing lethality. It is feedback, a closed loop. And now you understand why escort fighters alone cannot fix this. You cannot shoot radar, you cannot strafe mathematics, but the Allies adapt or they die. So change begins slowly and painfully. Bombers start varying altitude inside the formation. Not much, 100 feet, sometimes less, but enough to disrupt fuse accuracy. Routes become less predictable, timing is altered, targets rotate. Fighter escorts push deeper, not just to fight interceptors, but to attack flak positions directly when possible, strafing gun crews, forcing heads down, breaking rhythm. And above all, intelligence officers begin mapping the belts. Every burst observed. Every gun flash plotted. Patterns emerge. Weak seams are identified. It is not victory, it is survival. At 45% of the way through this story, understand what that implies. The Allies are not overcoming German flak. They are learning how not to be annihilated by it. If you find this kind of forgotten military history as fascinating as we do, we'd be honored if you'd hit that subscribe button. These stories of sacrifice and hard-earned adaptation deserve to be remembered. And by subscribing, you help ensure they are not lost to time. But the cost of learning is still paid in blood. What the German High Command does not realize, at least not immediately, is that their perfect system has a flaw. It is rigid. Radar-guided flak belts are devastating against predictable targets, but they demand coordination, power, communication, and time. They cannot relocate quickly. They cannot improvise under sustained disruption. By late 1943 and early 1944, Allied pressure begins to tell. Escort fighters range freely. Radar sites are bombed. Power stations feeding fire control networks are targeted. Communications are jammed or severed. Flak remains deadly but no longer omnipotent. And then comes the shift that changes everything. Long-range escorts, P-51 Mustangs, arrive in force. They do not just protect the bombers, they hunt the system. They loiter. They wait. They attack when flak crews are most exposed. German gunners now face a new fear, not the bomber overhead, but the fighter screaming in at treetop height after the bombs fall. By D-Day, the once impenetrable flak belts are thinning. Ammunition shortages bite. Crews are exhausted. Guns are destroyed faster than they can be replaced. The system that once ruled the sky is being strangled by its own complexity. And the strategic impact is immense. Daylight bombing continues. Oil production collapses. Aircraft factories are hit repeatedly. The Luftwaffe bleeds itself dry defending targets it can no longer fully protect. German commanders write bitter reports. The enemy dominates the air. But dominance did not come from a single weapon or a single raid. It came from understanding the machine and learning how to break it. Return now to the human scale. The average bomber crewman over Germany in 1943 is 22 years old. Many are on their first combat tour. Some are on their last mission without knowing it. More than 26,000 Allied airmen are killed in the air war over Europe. Tens of thousands more are wounded or captured. Many fall not to fighters but to flak, sudden, unseen, unforgiving. Colonel Hub Zemk survives the war. He is captured later, escapes, is recaptured, and lives to see peace. His post-war writings help shape modern air combat doctrine. He understands, perhaps better than most, that technology without adaptation is a trap. The German flak system was brilliant, and it was beaten, not by bravery alone, not by numbers alone, but by relentless analysis under fire. That matters now. Because every modern air defense network, every radar-guided missile system, every integrated kill chain traces its lineage back to the skies over Germany. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm that this history is worth remembering. We are dedicated to rescuing these stories from the archives. If you want to join us on that mission, please subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Drop a comment with your city or state, and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that the thousands of unnamed bomber crews who flew into those flak belts do not disappear into silence. They deserve to be remembered. You are inside the bomber stream now, not as a commander reading reports, not as a strategist drawing circles on a map. You are one aircraft in a box formation stretching miles across the sky, engines droning at 2,300 RPM, oxygen masks hissing, the temperature 40 degrees below zero. The first flak bursts appear at 10:42 hours. They are black, perfectly round. They hang for a fraction of a second exactly at your altitude, then another, and another. You count them without meaning to. 1, 2, 5, 10. By the time you reach the target, there are hundreds. The sound is not an explosion, it is a concussion, a hammer striking the air itself. Your aircraft shudders as if hit by a giant hand. Loose gear slams against the fuselage. A waist gunner screams that his interphone is dead. At 24,000 feet, a shell detonates 20 yards off your left wing. Shrapnel punches through aluminum like paper. Hydraulic fluid sprays. Control cable snaps. You are still flying, but the formation tightens instinctively. That is when the Germans adjust. The next salvo detonates inside the box. A B-17 above you loses its tail. It does not fall apart, it folds as if the air simply gives way beneath it. The aircraft flips once, twice, and then disappears into cloud. There is no parachute. You realize something in that moment. The flak gunners are walking the bursts, up 10 meters, left 20, forward 1 second. This is live correction. And then just when the tension becomes unbearable, the firing stops. Silence. You almost welcome it, but the silence is deliberate. The Germans conserve ammunition until the bomb run begins, when you must fly straight, when you must hold altitude, when you cannot maneuver. Bomb bay doors open. At that command, you become a fixed target. The inner belt opens fire. The bursts are so dense you cannot see the ground. Black smoke fills the sky. Your aircraft flies through exploding steel, each burst timed to your speed, your height, your exact position in space. A shell detonates beneath the cockpit. The nose plexiglass shatters inward. The bombardier is killed instantly, no blood, just sudden stillness. The navigator is thrown against his table, ribs broken, lungs collapsing. You keep flying because you have to. Because if you break now, the entire formation fractures and everyone dies faster. This is the impossible action, not one heroic maneuver, not one decisive strike, but sustained obedience to doctrine in a sky designed to punish it. Minute after minute, second after second, until the bombs are gone. What follows is not relief, it is reckoning. The Allies begin measuring loss rates with brutal honesty. Anything above 5% is unsustainable. German flak alone pushes missions into double digits, so the response becomes systemic. Electronic countermeasures are introduced. Window, thin strips of aluminum foil, confuses radar screens, creating false bomber streams. For the first time, German fire control solutions falter. Crews report flak bursting hundreds of feet off target. Confusion spreads through command bunkers. At the same time, Allied intelligence deciphers the structure of the belts themselves. Cities are no longer attacked in isolation. They are approached through corridors chosen to minimize exposure time. Bomb runs are shortened. Altitude bands are deliberately staggered. And then the Americans do something the system was never designed to face. They refuse to turn back. In 1944, bomber streams returned to the same targets again and again. Oil refineries at Merseburg, synthetic fuel plants at Luna, aircraft factories in Leipzig. German gunners fire until barrels glow. Crews work until their hands bleed. Ammunition stockpiles shrink. The system is still deadly, but it is no longer decisive. What the German command finally understands, too late, is that a perfect defensive machine cannot win a war of attrition against an enemy willing to adapt faster than it can rebuild. The flak belts bleed the bombers, but the bombers bleed Germany dry. Look at the numbers now. By the end of the war, more than 1.5 million German flak rounds are fired per bomber shot down. What once seemed surgical becomes unsustainable. And yet, for the men who flew those missions, statistics never mattered. Names did, faces did. The last surviving crewmen remember the sound first, the pressure, the sudden absence where an aircraft used to be. They remember learning slowly, painfully, that the sky could be engineered to kill them, and that it could be unlearned. Colonel Hub Zemk lives long enough to see jet aircraft, guided missiles, and modern integrated air defenses, all descendants of the system he first confronted in 1943. He understands the lesson completely. Air power is not about invincibility. It is about adaptation under fire. That lesson matters now, in a world once again obsessed with systems, sensors, and perfect solutions. If this story moved you, please hit that like button. Every click tells the algorithm this history is worth remembering. We are committed to rescuing these stories from silence. If you want to be part of that mission, subscribe and turn on notifications. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment with your city or country and tell us if someone in your family served. Thank you for ensuring that the bomber crews who flew into those flak belts, thousands of them, most still unnamed, are not forgotten. They faced a sky designed to kill them, and they flew anyway.